Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cheesycast Retrospective. My name is Cheesymanfredo, aka Alfredo Morales, and today we're going to be doing a retrospective on the graphic novel series Redman with the creator himself, Matt Frank. Introduce yourself, Matt.
Hey everybody, it's good to be back on the show. And it's so funny because every time I hear Cheesymanfredo, I love that name so much. It's so good. No, I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to talk about Redman. I actually feel like I haven't really talked about Redman in a little while. So yeah, man.
Yeah, same here. As in, I like my name too. It was actually option. It was actually my second option. My first option was Cheesy Alfredo, but that was already taken on Instagram. So yeah,
No, that's actually pretty good too.
yeah.
Oh
Um,
man, but
it's
yeah,
it's catchy. But anyway, let's get into Redman. All right.
yeah.
If anyone who's listening to this is a newbie and doesn't know what Redman is, Matt, how would you describe Redman, the graphic novel series? How would you describe it?
The way I usually describe it is if you have any familiarity with the character Ultraman, it's the same company as Ultraman, but like kind of a D tier character in the franchise's history, and it's this kind of weird, twisted, kind of darker version, more like less like a superhero and more like just this kaiju Punisher or kaiju Terminator. I mean, the subtitle for the series is Redman, the Kaiju Hunter, and that's very accurate. So yeah, it's this D tier Japanese superhero show from the 70s that had sort of this cult following, especially in recent years because the episodes finally started getting posted on YouTube. We took that show, specifically my publishers in Japan, got the rights to the show, and we made a comic based out of it. And I'll go more into the details of it, but that is the basics of it. We took the show and tried to make a narrative out of it because there wasn't really a story to the original show.
Right, right. If you just look up, all you're gonna find about this show, like specifically on YouTube, someone conveniently put them all together in like a
Mm-hmm.
playlist. There is like somewhat of a backstory, but you never shown that.
Mm-hmm.
Like this. It's like I mean, like you mentioned, like Ultraman. It is like this weird kind of like parallel to Ultraman, because Redman's origin is also very similar. Well, supposedly it's similar. It's just written down. You never get to see it. All you get to watch from these clips is like these kind of like rural Japan, empty, kind of foresty canyon areas in Japan, and there's fog. There's a lot of fog, and there's this guy that looks like an Ultraman, and just beats the shit out of other kaiju's who are just usually just minding their own business, right? He just shows up and just starts beating the shit out of them for no real reason. I mean, sometimes they're like vicious, but like in the sense that like if you ever see a bear in the forest, a bear ain't gonna mess with you unless you mess with it first. And
Well, yeah, I feel like that's a really good. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I feel like that's actually very accurate. It's really just this guy running around the wilderness, just just killing monsters. I can't remember. Can we swear on
Yeah,
this
you,
podcast?
you, you can swear. Go ahead.
I remember showing Redman to a friend of mine for the first time back when I was first working on the book,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a I think it was the episode where Astron or Black King or one of the monsters was just kind of wandering around this field
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of like mind his own business, and then here comes Redman running in from off screen and just starts attacking him. And I remember my friend saying, "Look at this motherfucker out here having a good time, enjoying himself. I'm gonna kick the crap out of him." Just like it was the savagery of just like, look at this motherfucker. Um,
there,
just, and I feel like that's very accurate.
yeah, there was. It reminds me of this one. This is one like comic that gets passed around a lot on social media, where it's like a dog barking, and the owner's all like, "What's going on? Why are you barking?" And then the dog responds and says, "You won't believe it. The neighbor just pulled into their own driveway, and he had the audacity to walk into his own house." And then the owner says, "That son of a bitch."
That is the audacity to walk into his own house. I mean, that's so funny because like I live in a neighborhood where we got a lot like when quarantine first kicked off, everybody got dogs, and so the neighborhood just like is just filled with dogs now. So and a lot of them will just bark and at nothing, and I can so see that being like the audacity of walking into their own house. It's so bitch. God. It's so good. But yeah, that is kind of the Redman vibe where you never. It's because so. I mean, part of it is that back in the 60s and 70s, in the early days of tokusatsu, of Japanese superhero special effects stuff, it's just kind of taken as a given that the monsters are bad, and if the hero is fighting the monster, chances are you just need to roll with it because the monsters are bad.
Yeah, like just default bad, right?
Right. I mean, and that's not to say that in certain episodes of Ultraman there weren't moral quandaries or they weren't like, well, this is sad that we have to put this monster down, or, you know, oh, the monster, this is actually a good monster, there's actually a bad monster we need to fight. And you know, but the general default is, oh, there's monsters, you don't question it that the hero runs in to kill them. But you have to sit there and wonder, like, because of the way Redman is filmed. Well, okay, so I'll give a little extra backstory. Redman, the former head of the board of directors, or like the head boss at Subaraya. Subaraya is the company that creates Ultraman, creates Redman. The former boss was a cameraman on Redman. Like, that was his first job for the company. He worked on the show, and he actually recounted some of his experiences doing Redman. And in fact, I believe even in the English language version of the comic, he wrote an intro explaining like how they had no money. They basically were told, put all of the monster costumes on top of a van, drive out somewhere where there's no power lines or the roofs of houses or anything, and just film stuff. And they didn't even have like a dolly setup. They had to just, everything was handheld cameras. And it's just so crazy to me to think that all of these completely, pretty much accidental creative choices wound up creating this show with a really kind of a dark vibe to it. Like you're watching something you're not supposed to be watching.
Yeah, it's very grungy, and that's like a big thing with this comic series specifically, right? Because well, it's one of the big prolonged. It's one of the theories, I guess you could give this series, because they don't really Matt doesn't really like give you he doesn't give you the like lore, like, oh yeah, this is happening because so and so alien so and so, but you don't like give us anything, which I love by the way. It's really great.
I'm glad.
It goes hand in hand with the whole like these are just like random videos that there's no explanation why these kind of really exist. My theory was that I thought what they were doing were that they'd film the monster fights and then later they'll film the human scenes and then edit in the monster fights. Like, that's what I thought they were gonna do with the show. I have no like background. I have like no knowledge of that's what they were doing. That's just, I thought, would be my guess of what they were trying to pull.
Well, the way, as I understand it, I mean, I think the story would change depending on who you asked. But yeah, I mean, to address your first point, I really wanted to keep the story super close to the chest. I wanted it to be very obtuse as to what exactly was happening. Because outside of Redman itself, my two biggest inspirations for working on this series were the show Twin Peaks, which I don't know if you're at all familiar with that.
I'm aware. I haven't seen it, but I'm very well aware of the works of David Lynch, and I feel like it's probably a similar vibe. Well, with the show and the movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll get to that in a second. But the other, well, actually, I'll start on Twin Peaks and all that. I didn't know a whole lot about David Lynch until my buddy Paul started showing me various David Lynch movies and commercials, and then we watched a little bit of Twin Peaks. And I haven't seen the whole show, but I've seen enough of it to kind of get the vibe, because there is a whole mythology to it. There's a whole like internal logic that the show is running on. And in fact, Neon Genesis Evangelion is very similar. There is an internal logic to what's going on, and there is a lore to what's going on. But as audience members, we are not privy to that. We do not get exposed to that because the creator, that's not really the purpose. And it's also kind of part of the mystery. Like, you're sort of supposed to suss the stuff out yourself.
Right.
Or rather, it's more fun to kind of suss it out yourself than just be told what's happening. And specifically with Twin Peaks, like I said, there's actually a lot of the basis of that show is based in ooky spooky kind of modern day cryptozoology, not necessarily cryptozoology, but like paranormal stuff. There's actually some basis in like the world of paranormal study and paranormal investigations that Twin Peaks takes a lot of inspiration from. And the other major influence was actually the manga of Junji Ito. Are you familiar with that? His work?
Oh yeah, I'm deep in that Junji Ito.
Yeah. I mean, Junji, he's one of the greatest. I think he's one of the greatest manga creators of all time. Not just manga creators, one of the greatest horror.
Yeah, he's
creators.
one of my most favorite. He's like in my top 3. I'll say that.
Which is so funny because, and it's funny to say that and to hear that and kind of wax poetically about Junji Ito, because reading his books make me queasy. Like I can only read them for like, specifically, and we'll get into it, but the first chapter of volume 3 is heavily inspired by Ito's work. And I actually went and I went to my local Kinokuniya, my local Japanese bookstore, which has a whole section on Junji Ito. And I'm looking through it, and I'm looking through the books, and I'm thinking, like, which would be good to buy and take home and sit and use as a, and really get the vibe of this and really pore over it and study it. And I realized that after going through a couple of them and just kind of skimming them, I was like, shit, I gotta go sit down because I feel nauseous. And it's because, and it's not just the grotesquerie of it. It's not just how gross or violent it is. It's this constant feeling of dread and the fact that you don't know what's going on. You don't really get any real explanation as to why this stuff is happening. You get the feeling, this unsettling feeling that there is an internal logic to it, but you're never really going to know what it is. That's part of what makes it so scary.
I feel it. Yeah, that existential dread. You're just like, humans are just these weird little meat blobs that just happen to exist at the same time that these larger forces that kind of see us as insignificant are happening, you know. And I mean, yeah, and I like that. I think I actually do have all the books right now in front of me, so I can reference anything I need to. Thinking back about that first story in volume 3, I can see it. I can see how a little bit of not Uzumaki, the Junji Ito reference. Although I think if Junji Ito did it, the kid would like slowly morph into a monster over time or something.
Well, that was the thing is, trust me, like, I actually had much more intense plans for that volume. I actually had, like, some way more disturbing stuff in mind. And But then I kind of remembered that Subaraya has certain standards. They don't want to narrowly draw the appeal of what they're doing in any way that excludes children.
Right.
And I've actually gotten fan art from kids both in America and Japan. And of course, my first question is, it is really awesome, but my first question is, hey, can I talk to your dad for a minute? But it's fun stuff. And but the with regards to the, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. I had a couple more slightly more disturbing sequences, but after a certain point, I said I don't want to go too far with this. Let's reel this back a little bit.
Yeah, well, we'll save that for my what's the word?
Director's cut.
Not director's cut, but like, damn, it's a copyright friendly ripoff of Redman that I'll make later.
Sure.
Okay, if you got anything else to say, I had another question.
Yeah, what? No, go ahead. What's your question?
Okay, I think you probably went over this a little bit in the first interview we had, but how specifically did you get the job for Redman? I think you glazed over a little bit, like earlier in this video too.
Okay, I think one of us cut out for just a second. So, do you mind asking a question one more time?
Oh, word, my bad.
All right.
It's how did you get the Redman job?
Oh, okay. I have gone over this in the past, but that's totally okay. It's a story that definitely bears repeating. I got so I've been working with a company in Japan called Phase 6 Publishing, Phase 6 Productions. They're traditionally a translation company. They do translations for various companies, both in the entertainment industry and the service industry, for hotels and all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They really, well, the owner, Andrew Hall, he's an American. He was American born, but he moved to Japan and he settled down there and made this company.
Mm-hmm.
And his real dream was to start expanding into the entertainment industry, specifically by publishing comics and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
His first comic he ever published was actually Godzilla Rulers of Earth, which was one of the main Godzilla book that I worked on for IDW Publishing.
Right.
And so he managed to get that license, and I started making new covers for the Japanese releases.
Mm-hmm.
Those started doing pretty well. Excuse me. I've been I got up unreasonably early for myself, which was 9:30 a.m. Anyway, we were discussing, like, well, we really want to do some original material. We want to do some new material, some new comics, and we were talking about a couple of different things. Mostly we were talking about doing some new Godzilla books, which is kind of difficult because, Toho has a certain way they work with the property, and it's kind of hard to get approval for stuff sometimes. But while we were waiting on that, the Redman show started getting put out on YouTube by Subaraya's official YouTube channel. This was back in, I want to say, 2016, give or take. Andrew saw the episodes, he saw the show, and he also saw all the chatter that was happening online, because those videos kind of went low-level viral, and people started coming up with their own theories about, like, who and what Redman is. They started digging up old magazines and finding out he's called, like, the Red Phantom Killer by fans in Japan because he's so terribly violent. And all this stuff, and Andrew was like, "Oh man, we could probably make a Redman comic." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Like, sure we will." Like, I'm thinking, like, there's no way they're gonna let a bunch of gaijin, a bunch of gringos, whatever you want to say,
just step in and take an obscure toku property and make a comic. Like, who would say yes to that?
Well, apparently Subaraya did, because not only were they like, they themselves were kind of thinking, like, oh, we could probably do more with Redman. They were also already familiar with my work. A couple of their employees had been buying the Godzilla comics, and
Awesome.
Yeah, so they were already familiar with my work, and they were very like down to work with us. So I got a call from Andrew that said, and he said, "Hey, go ahead and." I'm so sorry. Sorry, I've had a long day, man. But I'm happy I can take a little time and unwind and talk about this stuff. I got an email. I got this email, this call, whatever, and he said, "Hey, we've got a meeting with Subaraya. Can you put together some sketches and like a general pitch proposal?" I said, "Oh, okay." So I did that, and I sent it off to him, and I thought, I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's nice that he got the meeting. A couple days later, he said, "Meeting went great. We're moving forward. Write up. Start working on it. Start writing the script." And I'm like, "Oh God, oh God!" And so yeah, and it kind of went from there. And I was really surprised at how permissive Subaraya was, where they were like, Matt can pretty much do whatever he wants. Which one of the reasons why they were very permissive about that was simply the fact that Redman doesn't have the same it doesn't have the same clout that Ultraman does, so nobody cares.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like you were writing for Batman or something. You know, it's not that they put certain restrictions on you, like, oh, you can't have our most popular character doing all these like wacky stuff, right?
Yeah, you've got to follow the guidelines and stuff, and but they also, I think Subaraya, and it's really nice to hear this stuff, but I think Subaraya really does trust me. I think that I had some emails with them recently about some unrelated projects, and they're apparently very like it's very gratifying to know that they actually think pretty highly of me, and they're very they know that whatever they give me, it's in good hands. Because I know this stuff and I understand this stuff, so it's nice. It's been a really good relationship.
That's really awesome. This is like really dope to hear, right? It's a real fanboy kind of dream too.
Oh right? Yeah. Well, I think that the important thing, I am a fan, and I'm admittedly a huge
boy.
A huge boy. That's a boy I can get into. I am a huge boy. I am a huge fan of this stuff. I am also not. I don't let my fandom blind me.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I try to get out of those. I try to because the trick with writing, because I write all these stories too, and the trick to writing is you don't just want to give the audience what they think they want, because the audiences don't actually know what they want, especially fans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
But what you want to give them is what they didn't know they wanted.
Right.
I mean, you could as an interesting point of comparison, this whole debate that's popped up over the subversion of expectations.
Oh yeah, classic debate. Yeah, we're in this debate.
Oh yeah, no, like it's the Last Jedi argument, which is like, right. At what point does it become subversion of expectations, and what point are you just spinning your wheels? Because I think a good comparison is between something like Last Jedi and something like Knives Out, which are both, of course, Rian Johnson. And after having seen Knives Out and loving it,
same here.
Oh yeah. I actually really now I have a much better understanding of Rian Johnson as a filmmaker, and what he really wanted to do with Star Wars, but ultimately was not allowed to do with Star Wars because that franchise is such a monstrous chimera, and it's so like up its own ass, and the fans are all up its ass. You can't really do that in Star Wars. And I mean there's a lot of other factors. I mean, he probably got reined in a bunch. He probably was told, like, okay, you can write this thing, but you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. So he was kind of doing things that seemed as though they were subverting expectations, or they were trying to surprise the audience. but it kind of comes across as like, well, then why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you have Force Awakens, which not Force Awakens,
Right, Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, which I don't know about your personal opinions on that movie, but I thought it was a garbage fire because
same here. It was the biggest backtracking I've ever seen, and it's like, why would he do that?
It's because Disney told him, you need to get the fans back in our corner, and you need to give the fans what they want. They gave them a bunch of stuff that the fans all thought they wanted.
It's so funny how they managed to get both like lovers of Last Jedi and the haters of Last Jedi to both hate that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I gathered a couple of friends who do like it, mostly because I have friends who like Rise of Skywalker the same way that a lot of Godzilla fans I know like King of the Monsters, because King of the Monsters is fun, but it's also a lot like Rise of Skywalker in that it's kind of just a bunch of fan wankery, and
it is. I mean, it's fan wankery we haven't seen in a long time, which I mean, I don't mind, but damn, I was gonna say something. I forgot. I know that. I just remembered. Babu Freak exists, so I think Rise of Skywalker is a 10 out of 10 now. you remember Babu Freak? He's like the little. He's like the little guy who's like, I'm Babu Freak. He's the guy who like programs C-3PO.
He's a little puppet.
Yeah,
now that is one thing. That is one thing I will give a lot of credit to Rise of Skywalker for, is that all the puppets and practical effects were just chef's kiss. So good.
Yeah, if there was there was like one thing they did well was production, art direction was pretty good. It was pretty spot on. It sucked that it felt like they were shoving 3 Star Wars movies into one movie, but you know, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? I mean, I guess we'll see. Well, The Mandalorian, pretty much totally. For me, I think The Mandalorian has made me more of a fan of Star Wars than I've been since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Even though when I was a kid, I would take my X-Wing and TIE Fighter and Y-Wing and just pretend they were vehicles for the Science Patrol helping out Ultraman. But anyway, yeah, man.
I think.
What the hell were we talking about?
We're talking about Redman. I think I was asking like, I think we were talking about the writing process of Redman with the Subaraya, like the do's and do nots of Subaraya, and they were pretty lenient with you because they trusted you, and because Redman isn't like a forefront. He isn't an Ultraman, right? So they're not gonna be stingy with you about that. They're gonna give you a little bit more freedom, which turned out a real benefit for the comic, I would say, because you pull a lot of really like crazy maneuvers. You pull a lot of maneuvers that I was like, okay, I would expect that, but then you pull a lot of stuff that I'm like, okay, hold up. That was really great. That we'll go into later in a second.
Well, sure. One thing I did want to backpedal on a little bit was talk about the lore of Redman, because like you said, there actually is this very basic, very like the barest drip of lore for Redman that was mostly expressed in interviews and in like children's magazines from the 70s and stuff. So it's all very few and far between, and they even had some original monsters planned for the series, but of course they never had the budget for it. I took a lot of those basic elements and tried to find new ways to interpret them. And there is a lore to the Redman comics, but again, it's like Twin Peaks, it's like Evangelion. You're not going to get the whole story. You're going to get bits and pieces, and you got to figure it out.
I prefer it that way. I think it just makes it like 10 times more interesting.
Well, I'm glad.
I think I have I think I had one more question.
Okay.
I guess. Okay. So this will be the last question before we specifically go into the I have this whole rundown of like every single one of my favorite moments from these three books.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, but before we go into that, I want to talk about reception of Redman from Japan and from here in America. What's the reception like?
I mean, the reception has been fantastic. I would say, while it wasn't like a chart topper in Japan, Volume 1 especially sold very well. Like, for the tiny little publisher we have, it sold like better than I think they could have ever hoped. It sold amazingly well. We were actually like not surprised necessarily by the reception, because we were excited about it, and the hope is that other people will share your excitement. We just didn't anticipate it to like people to kind of lose their minds over it and start like immediately start creating Twitter accounts just for like Redman related stuff. And people started making like their own fan comics. Like I have a fan comic that someone gave me in Japan. It was Redman versus the Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's
and
awesome.
Redman, but I like the way they drew Redman. They drew him real buff, like an American comic book character.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that was some of the chatter when we announced Redman, and a lot of people were asking, like, is this American comic artist is doing this? And somebody shared a did you ever see Akiba Ranger?
Kiba Ranger, is that from
Oh,
is that from like the team that was after the Power Ranger in Super Sentai, or am I?
no. Well, Kiba Ranger is, but sorry, I was making a really specific reference.
Is he the white Power Ranger?
He is, but that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Akiba Rangers.
Oh, Akiba. Yeah, I'm aware of the Akiba Rangers. Yeah, I'm aware of them.
Okay.
Unofficial Sentai Akiba Rangers.
Yeah. Okay, see, that's what I was talking about. So you remember the Powerful Rangers episode where like the Red and Green Ranger, and you remember they had a comic book of the super buff Red Ranger?
Yeah, I remember that.
People were sharing that picture, saying like, "Is this what Redman's gonna look like?" Because it's an American artist. But then when the comic came out in Japan, a lot of the chatter was, "Holy shit, this guy gets it." And this guy knows how to draw tokusatsu and is drawing it like it's a guy in a suit. And it became like kind of an overnight hit, and people were really enjoying it. Now, again, it wasn't a chart topper. It didn't sell like huge gangbusters numbers, but it did really well. And it did so well that, we moved forward on Volume 2. Our publisher, that was when we did start doing Redman merch. And the Redman merch is really, really cool. And then it took us a little while, but we got around to Volume 3. And Volume 3 was released the same weekend, or right around the same weekend, as the Subaraya convention in Japan last December. And that was really cool because we basically had an all Redman booth at there. Nice. And I believe it was because of that booth and because of our presence because we had lines all day. We had lines all day at the show, all 2 days. And it got to the point where we had to like tell everyone, okay, Matt needs to take a break because he has to pee and he has to eat. Preferably in that order and not at the same time.
Right.
And of course, the fans of Japan are so polite. They never throw a tantrum. They never throw a fit. They're like, okay, I'll just come back later. They're very patient. And the people were they're all just so sweet. They're all so excited about Redman 1. Because up to right now, Volume 3 is the end of this season.
Yeah.
It's the end of this part of the story. And I'll talk about the future towards the end of the show, towards the end of the podcast. But
of course.
And in America, people have been really liking it. Again, it's not a huge seller, but I think they're selling just enough to turn a profit and to justify to keep selling them. But they have a lot of merch, and the publisher is Night Shining Incorporated, and they have been all in on Redman. They've been really big supporters of it. They make their own merch for it. Volume 3's distribution got really slowed down because of all the COVID stuff, but people are finally getting Volume 3, and they seem to be really enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it. If that means anything.
It does.
Awesome. Damn, okay, yeah, so earlier when you said that you guys had like lines all day at the booth, I'm like, damn, that must be a real feast for the ego to have that.
Man, I have to constantly both my wife and my assistant, my various assistants, but I have a new primary assistant right now, and she has been like, you should be proud of yourself. You should allow yourself a little ego indulgence. And I'm like, but no, I don't want to become one of those asshole artists who gets too big for their britches. And I already have issues with being like sort of Captain Swinging Big Dick when it comes to my opinion on tokusatsu stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to also have a big ego about my art, but I will admit it feels really good. It feels really good because I feel like my work is appreciated and that it means something to people. Because I got to tell you, there's a surprising number of lady Ultraman fans and lady tokusatsu fans in Japan. And one of them came up to me and she wanted to get a mini sketch. I had an Ultraman sketchbook and I was doing little mini sketches in for people.
Right.
And she wanted Ultraman Titus, who was one of the more popular recent characters from Ultraman Taiga, which was last year's series. Titus is like the breakout character of that show. Everybody loves Titus. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Is he blue?
No, Titus is red and black.
Wait, does he have like a weird head, or am I thinking of another Ultraman?
He's kind of got a boxy head, but he's very muscular. He's got he's kind of like Alex Louise Armstrong, the strong arm alchemist.
Right.
And he's real buff and but he's also very positive. He's a very positive character where he talks about how a strong body requires a strong mind, and he's very, very popular and especially with girls, because not just because he's super buff, but because he's so positive and so like warm and affectionate, and just like, and that's the sort of thing that lady fans tend to like that. So she asked me to draw Titus for her, and I'm just sitting there sketching Titus's doofy face. Well, not a doofy face. I'm just sketching his face. It's a very quick sketch. It's like maybe 20 seconds, like a half a minute.
Right.
And I look up at her, and she has tears streaming down her face. And I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, no, I am so happy. And I'm like, damn it. It was really, really cute. Like my wife was actually there in costume. She was in a Pit Sajin costume from Ultra 7.
Yeah.
And she had this big mask on, but she was like kind of reaching out like, oh no. Do you need hugs? But yeah. Aww. So that's one of my favorite moments interacting with fans. And every time I did conventions last year, I'd always get people asking like, do you have Redman? Do you have Redman? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I keep selling out of them, but you can order it off the website. I'm like, well, but I wanted to buy it from you. And I'm like, well, I can't help you then.
I'm sorry, dog.
Sorry, dog. But anyway, yeah, man, that's the majority of it.
That's awesome to hear. That's awesome to hear.
It's nice.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the reception keeps getting better. I hope you don't drop a volume and then everyone just suddenly hates Redman now or something.
Well, we're gonna see what happens in the future. I hope so too. But yeah, man,
we're gonna see. All right, cool. So this is the part where we're gonna recap through every little thing that I liked about about each volume.
Okay.
And I'm looking through some of these. I'm looking for some of the things I mentioned. It's like stuff we already talked about. I guess what's a memorable moment from specifically making Redman. Like, I guess from drawing the comic, what was there a moment that you remember where you had like a little something that you did, or like because for example, because I also make a comic, right? And there's like little moments where I don't know what your writing process is, but mine is like a very kind of like simple overall synopsis of what's going on, and then when I actually draw it is when I actually figure out what's gonna happen. And sometimes I get these little like moments of genius that like, oh, I didn't like write that down, but like it just happened, you know. um I You get what I mean?
I do. So okay, I kind of get what you're saying. So what I'm interpreting it as is I'm going to give you three moments
Right.
that are tops of my list.
Mm-hmm.
The first moment is the general feeling of when he starts to take shape.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of the time I'm writing the scripts, I'm either writing them on, I was writing most of the scripts on planes, or I was writing them while walking my dog, and I'm just typing
Just typing on your phone.
on my phone.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that?
I said typing on your phone.
Yeah, typing on my phone. And so as a result, I'm just sitting there and I'm just kind of like dragging my poor dog all over my 10-year-old dog all over the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And she's fun, greyhound. They're pretty. They. Am I still coming through okay, or am I cutting in and out?
You cut out once in a while, but doesn't sound too bad.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about
Oh wait,
that. Be a little fuzzy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Damn. Can you hear me now?
I could if you want, you could leave the call and get right back in and see if that works.
Let me try some. Hold on a second.
All right.
Okay.
Hmm. Did you do it?
Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're coming through okay now.
Okay, now I'm coming through. I'm still talking.
All right. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't. I'm not hearing any like pauses or cuts.
Okay, well, we'll keep going for a little bit because I think part of the problem was that my VPN was still on and that was slowing me down.
Oh, word.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. We'll fix this in post.
All right. Okay, so you said top three favorite moments that you remember.
All right, the first favorite is when a story comes together,
Mm-hmm.
and I get that aha moment where I'm like, that's how it works, or that's how it's going to work,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh shit, that's it, that's the one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, this is, it's where I can feel the story starting to take shape in a way where I can structure it, and make it work. My second moment is not necessarily more or less important, but it was when I was able to introduce to the world the character Bemdora in
Oh
Volume
yeah,
3.
yeah. That was great.
Yeah, because Bemdora, of course, has a whole history behind him. And I had someone actually come up to me at a convention saying that they really want to make a custom Bemdora figure. So I actually I helped them a little bit by sending them, I did some drawings for them, like, well, here's what the other side of Bendora's hands look like, and here's how this works, and here's what his back looks like, and all that. So I'm really excited to see what they came up with. And the third isn't really a positive thing, but it's still
yeah.
It's the part of the fabric of who I am, and it's kind of part of what's made me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that working on Volume 3, I worked a little too much in too short a time, and I blew my shoulder out.
Oh no.
Yeah, I injured the muscle that runs from essentially the base of your neck on your spine to around through your shoulder down into your upper arm.
Yeah.
I mean, I already have like, I don't know if you heard that. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me try it again.
We have what?
I already have a popping shoulder, mostly because I draw so much without doing stretches or exercises.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah, I feel
stretch,
it.
kids.
Oh,
Always
of
gotta
course, you
stretch.
gotta stretch.
But this was like straight up, like my arm doesn't work,
Damn.
and I couldn't lift it above my head. I could still draw. The motor function still worked, but I couldn't like lift stuff, and I couldn't like put it above my head without this shooting pain. And I had to go see a physical therapist for it. I started feeling mildly better, so I tried to go surfing, and then my shoulder just completely gave out again, and I totally relapsed.
Damn.
And I know it sucked. And then,
Sorry for the loud ass helicopter outside.
that's all right, man. And it just, yeah, it was just one of those things where I'm like, oh my god, this sucks. But I followed my physical therapist routine. He gave me a couple exercises to do, and that is the trick with physical therapy, is that it takes a while, but if you stick with it, it'll get better. You will physically get better, and you just have to do the routine. Like what I was doing was I was still working, but every hour to every 2 hours, I would take like 10 to 20 minutes and I would do my lifts with these little 5-pound weights. I would do neck rotations and I would do muscle stretches using this big piece of PVC piping. And so it again, it wasn't a specific moment, but it was like this experience I had where I'm like, okay, I'm glad this book came out the way as good as it did, but I really need to pace myself in the future.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, no,
But those are my big
it.
those are my big moments.
That's good. Lesson learned. I'm glad you didn't blow out your arm or something.
Yeah, it could have gotten a lot worse had I not sought medical attention, and thankfully I did. I didn't have any tears or anything. It was just so overworked. I had to build the strength back up in my other muscles in order to compensate for the strain I put that one under.
That's good to hear. I have like little wrist supporters I put on that that almost like work like magic. There was like kind of this whole week where my hand just felt like just all fucked, and I'm like, damn, I just can't really draw anything. And I tried like all sorts of stuff, and then someone suggested like, oh, you should get like wrist supporters. They're like just $1 at the Dollar Tree, and I'm like, well, that's pretty affordable and doesn't sound too complicated. So I got one, and I wore it for like a day or two, and my hands felt like instantly better, and I'm like, whoa, what the? So I bought 2 of them, so I have 2 for both hands, and
yeah, that's great. That's great. That's the thing is that I'm not going to get too like holistic and hippy dippy here, but your body will tell you when something's wrong, and you gotta. We have to listen to our bodies because our body's not going to talk to us.
It's the only one we got.
It's the only one we got. You've got to listen to it. You've got to take care of it. It's like a car. It's like a house. It's like anything else. You have to maintain it. And I'm glad to hear that, though. I'm glad to hear it because, I mean, it sounds like you had a wee touch of tendonitis or maybe carpal tunnel or something.
Yeah. It seemed like I might have showed like maybe a little bit of early symptoms or whatnot. But then after using like the wrist like supporters, they felt a lot better.
Good. Well, I would say that the big thing is definitely in the future, keep an eye on that and and pace yourself, because it's amazing what just a little tiny bit of TLC will do for your body when it's, I mean, just a little time, like you said, just a wrist support or just taking a day or 2 off before it gets really serious.
Oh, true that. I tend to give myself like a week-long break after finishing each chapter of my comic.
Nice.
I try to do the best to pace myself because I do plan to maybe do this till the day I die. So and I'm hoping hopefully the day I die isn't soon. I'm hoping it's in the far future.
Sure, man. No, I feel that, brother. I feel that. But Yeah. Well, do you want to get back over to Redman? I know
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
been yammering about this for a while.
No, this is great. This is the human moments. This is what the audience
Yeah,
craves. So yeah,
totally.
I think a lot of these questions we already covered. All right, now it's finally time to get to the moment I liked about Redman, about the volume
All right.
specifically. All right, so
All right.
I reread it. I reread it like twice just so I could like
Nice.
really give the insight. And I love how the universe like feels in Redman, specifically this weird because like for the audience, if you haven't like read Redman, I don't know what you're doing watching this video, but like if you haven't read it, it it feels like Redman takes place in some weird distilled moment in time in some area
Mm.
that's like in between almost living and dead because everything is just so foggy, dusty. All the kaiju's, I mean, like if you really look at like if you look at kaiju's and you look at like their outfits, they're very colorful. But in the world of Redman, all these kaiju's look like they have like dust and ash covering them because they just been here for so long, you know. And I really like that. Um, it's like a limbo, like they're in the limbo, which goes into like a lot of theories that people had about the original show that oh maybe Redman takes place in the monster graveyard from Ultraman because you know these are all Ultraman monsters that are just hanging out, right?
Yeah.
And Redman is some weird like uh devil torturer with his pitchfork on all these kaiju's.
I like that theory.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of fun. I will say it's not quite that,
Oh well,
but yeah,
that's like one of like my theories. I always kind of assume that also Redman is also a prisoner in this world as well.
sure. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's because that's the kind of vibe I got. Because he's almost like a machine. Like he's like has to just kill kaiju's. He kind of reminds you a little of Anton from No Country for Old Men.
Oh, good reference. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, No Country for Old Kaiju's.
Ah,
That there's a title for a chapter there.
that's
Uh,
good. I actually do like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I like I also like I think it this also happens in chapter one. There's a lot of good moments in the first like fight with what's his name Arstron. I also like how you also like name the kaiju's every time they
Oh yeah.
appear. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for that. I do that in my comic too when a new character shows up. Um,
Uh,
but I
well,
think what
that's very in line with classic with the Japanese storytelling. They will give a character its title and name and everything, and it feels very theatrical, and that's what I like about it.
I like I mean yeah, and like that's like a big thing about like tokusatsu. It's theatrics, it's theater, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like why people like enjoy it. Every time I like read out someone's name, I always like imagine it's like some sort of announcer, like some very excited narrator saying it some badass way. Um, what else? Also, what I like about that Redman in the comic is like expressive, but
Mm-hmm.
the way he expresses stuff is like the way he moves his helmet because his face never changes, but like the way his like helmet moves like gives tells you like what his expression is, and it kind of reminds me a lot of like Michael Myers in a way, you know. You know how like Michael Myers does like I think Redman does it too. He does like a little like head tilt, right?
Yeah, totally. There's a that really does track. I appreciate that comparison because I am not really a slasher movie fan,
Oh yeah, yeah,
but
gotcha.
I did channel a little of that that whole idea of like this unstoppable Terminator s juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Just coming in like wiping out people. No, no, I get you. I'm not that big of a slasher fan either. But I'm a big fan of the slasher movies that I like. If that
mm-hmm.
makes sense.
No,
Um,
totally.
okay. I also like how um, for this book could be enjoyed by like I feel like by anyone as long as you don't mind comics where the majority of them are silent, you will enjoy this book. I mean, also because the action scenes are great. But I also like how you would directly reference the original show, like 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 for example, the moment where Armstrong kicks the log at Redman. Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens in the show too.
Yeah. I did try to I tried to glean certain details from the show and make little just fun little references, but also, it's entirely possible that we've seen this song and dance many times. I mean, I, I I will give you a small tidbit, and I'm not going to give you much more than this, but internally we refer to this whole thing, this environment, we refer to it as the Purgatorium.
I like that name.
Yeah, and but we still kept it very nebulous. And no, and I'm glad. That is something that a lot of fans, especially in Japan, have remarked on, is like how I illustrate the kaiju and how I kind of make them feel still. I still want them to feel alive, but I also want them to look like the way they did in the show, because the suits in the show were all their second tier suits they use for like live shows and stuff. They were not made to have like electronics in the head or have their mouths open and close or
Right.
be used for anything other than low risk, cheap options for stage productions and stuff.
Right.
So I really wanted to capture that vibe because that all goes with it. It goes with this middle of winter, dead grass in the Japanese countryside, fog machine vibe.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for that dead atmosphere. It's like these creatures are already like used, like they were already abused and everything.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting to hear the things that you're picking up on, which are some. I won't say a whole lot about what is or what isn't, but you are picking up on some things that are like, I would say internally, I would say, yeah, that tracks. But the other things you're saying, and I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's kind of an interesting take I hadn't considered.
I'm glad I'm not like boring you with like telling you things like, oh, I like when you did this, and then you're like, I know you would like that because
I know you would like that.
You don't gotta tell me that you like it. I know you like it.
No, I dig it, man. I dig it. Yeah.
All right.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and okay, and then the next chapter when I like the next one where it's about Icarus. I like the moment where he has like the nightmare, and then there's like the weird nightmare version of Redman. Like I love that design. That design looks really good.
I mean, who's to say that that's not the real Redman?
I mean, that's true. It's like Redman could be a creature that's perceived differently depending who's seeing them. I think kind of like you ever heard of a game called Off? It's like an RPG.
Off. No.
It's well, like a spoiler, but for the final boss, you could actually get to choose if you want to like fight, if you want to play as the character you were playing the whole time, or you want to play as like the guy as the final boss, and you get to decide like depending which one you pick. If you pick the final boss character to play as to fight yourself, the final boss actually sees what the person you've been playing as the whole time as like a weird monster. So it's like it's like perception thing, right?
That's fun. I like that.
Oh yeah, it's really great. It's a great game. It's free too, so you can just download it. Yeah. And
I'll look into that.
I also like when Redman just froze Icarus at the other monster. That was pretty great.
Yeah, it's I especially in that first volume, I wanted each chapter to have a slightly different narrative flow to it. Chapter 2 was definitely like, because chapter 1 is very much like I wanted it to be a fight that was a little more on even footing as sort of this baseline introduction to Redman, because Astron is just this violent, is a super violent monster from the Return of Ultraman, and he's just kind of a dick, and not as much of a dick as Red King, but I wanted it to be again a fight that was a little more on equal footing. This whole the hunter has become the hunted kind of thing,
right?
And Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say that I really like how you really like stretched out as much potential as you could from this whole like environment and setting. Like you change it up, you know, like oh for this story we'll take it from the POV of the monster, and you do that several times, and you really give each monster like a unique personality and portrayal. You know.
I really appreciate that because you have to dig in a little bit and kind of find different ways to interpret stuff because Icarus was kind of just another alien invader in Ultra
Right.
7.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted to find something. I wanted to find because he's just kind of frolicking in the original show when he shows up.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking like, oh well, that'd be interesting because he's kind of a sweet-looking monster. He's kind of cute.
He looks
So
kind of like a Furby, kind of.
yeah. So I wanted to take that and really lean into it, lean into him really being like kind of an innocent and kind of not really deserving what's happening to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the thing is that this shit's not fair to anyone,
Oh
even
yeah, definitely.
including the monsters and including Redman.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to tap into that a little bit. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of like when like uh, unbaptized babies go to hell kind of scenario.
Just a little bit,
I mean,
but
if you want to go edgy as me, like that's what I would say. But
no, I mean it's all. I would say tapping into that there is that vibe, that darker part of our mentality. I was trying to tap into.
Word, true. All right, that's okay. That one's good. And then right after that, it's the chapter about Kanagan, and this is like one of my favorite stories from Volume 1.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is good. Like I can't pick a favorite moment because I like the entirety of it, right? And it's so like kind of different, and it gives you like it gives you more insight to like this to the purgatorium as you would call it.
Yeah.
Like how does this thing actually function, you know? And also kind of like reveals. Also at the end, you see the Cicada Man, which like when I first saw the Cicada Man, because not gonna lie, I'm not really that deep into Ultraman stuff. I'm more deep than I guess the majority of people, but I'm not as deep as like I would say you or like an act or deeper because I think I only ever seen the original Ultraman and like half of 7, and I haven't gone back to finish it, even though I keep saying I will one day.
Yeah.
But when I saw the Cicada Man, I'm like I swear I've seen that alien before because it looks so familiar. And then when I actually like researched into it and find out that they actually appear from Ultra Q, I thought that was like so cool because it's not that you're not just pulling from Ultraman, you're kind of pulling from things that just surround Ultraman as well, you know, because if anyone knows, Ultra Q is the series that existed right before Ultraman, and Ultra Q was more of a Twilight Zone anthology show, and that would have like Monster of the Week kind of thing going for it. And one of the creatures in there were these alien species called the Cicada Men, who do eventually appear in Ultraman again later on, but they were pretty much an Ultra Q exclusive thing. And I really do like that that you include them in Redman.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what that is. Okay, so it's really fun to hear your perspective on that because you know, as somebody who's like super deep in Ultraman lore, it's really gratifying that I'm able to kind of share this with people and trying to share this with people and trying to expand people's horizons in the tokusatsu genre. With regards to the Cicada Men specifically, the Cicada Men they fit in a very odd place in the broader Subaraya canon because there's a lot of speculation as to how they are related to the Baltan Seijin, because the Cicada Men, is that?
I was just their design is very similar, right?
Well, I think it's not just similar. I think the Cicada Men suit was actually repurposed as a Baltan, as the first Baltan suit, and so there has been some speculation, even in official media, as to what their connection is. In fact, in one of the Ultraman manga, I think it's Ultraman Story 0, there is it is shown that when the people of the planet that would eventually become the Land of Light. So the story goes that the Land of Light was a kind of not a normal planet, but they were a planet of people who visually looked very similar to humans. They were very close to humanity, but they had reached a very like an apex of technological achievement. They were very peaceful. They were kind of a utopian society, and then their son went out. Their son died. Now, there's several different theories as to how they got the plasma spark, which is the source of all Ultraman power. It was essentially an artificial sun. They put the artificial sun on the planet, and it essentially the whole Land of Light, the planet of Ultra, kind of inverted, and the planet itself now has like a miniature sun inside of it, and the radiation from that artificial sun turned all the people into Ultramen. And so it's just a very interesting story as to like who gave them the plasma spark and where did it come from. And in Ultraman Story 0, it is shown that when they activated the plasma spark, the Cicada Men were the ones who sabotaged it.
Oh, okay.
And then that sabotage, not only did it turn the Ultras turn the people into Ultra people, it also mutated the Cicada Men into Baltans.
Oh, word. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting idea. It's not my ideal origin story, but I do like it though. So just the Cicada Men as this very mysterious presence is I think is really juicy from a narrative perspective, and I'm very excited to see where I can go with this in the future, because it's entirely possible that we've seen the last of the Cicada Men in relation to Redman.
I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I mean, they don't gotta be like the ultimate big bad, to get you. But also, while you were telling that story, this is actually, I think, the second time I heard you say this exact same story, because I also watch your podcast where you talk about kaiju related stuff, and I think you mentioned the same story too in there. I'm not like saying you're in trouble for repeating yourself or anything. I'm just
no, it's okay.
It's a funny anecdote. Okay. Also, another thing I just reminded myself that I like that. Okay, so if you watch Redman, Kanegan does show up in Redman, but his design looks way different than from the Ultraman design, because his design in Redman looks kind of beat up and green, right?
Yep.
And I like how you kind of give it a canonical reason why he ends up looking beat up and green, because in this story, for the listener, Kanegan looks like his regular healthy kaiju self, but over the course of the story, he just keeps getting killed and revived until like he's in this like green zombie kind of state. Which is what his design looks like in Redman, right? And I thought that was really a chef kisses of you to do.
Well, yeah, it's this idea of him degrading over time with each reset, essentially. Now, the reality is that I've never personally settled on exactly what those rules were. I just thought this was a really interesting way to convey the degradation of the suit, because Kanegan is a very iconic character in Japan. He is another Ultra Q character, actually. He almost never appears in Ultraman. His episode in Ultra Q is actually really fun. it's an example of how Ultra Q has this very Twilight Zone anthology feel to it. Because some episodes are very like Monster of the Week, and there's like this crisis that everyone has to try to come together to help solve. But then in Ultra Q, there are some episodes that are just total dream logic or total child fairy tale logic.
Right.
And that's the Kanagon episode. The Kanagon episode is like, it's about a little boy who's very greedy. His parents tell him, if you're greedy, you might turn into Kanagon, the coin monster, and need to eat money to survive. And he's like, oh, pshaw, stuff and nonsense. And then he wakes up the next day and he's become Kanagon. And if he doesn't get enough coins, if he doesn't get enough yen, his little counter on his chest goes down to 0 and he might die or starve to death. And if you'll notice, his counter on his chest, the whole that whole chapter is always at 0.
Oh yeah. I did know. I didn't know that was the story behind it, but yeah, that I like that. That's very It's this. It adds into this like morbid kind of aesthetic that goes throughout all of like kind of Redman, like this underlying morbidness of what's like really going on, you know.
And that's the thing, is that I really try to channel also a bit of Silent Hill vibes, where there kind of are no rules. It's different for everyone, including the kaiju. And the kaiju it's like you were talking about. Everyone kind of perceives Redman differently. So the Purgatorium itself is perceived differently for all of the kaiju as well. So it just raises more questions. And but I liked. I remember this. You could count this among like some of my favorite moments when I hit upon that solution of, oh, even though Kanagon is completely degraded, he's learned how to anticipate Redman, and I wanted there to. I wouldn't even really describe it as this mutual feeling of respect. It's more like Redman is like, I can't do anything else to this thing.
Right.
I can't do anything else to Kanagon. He's just part of the Purgatorium now.
Right.
And I mean, there's a couple different ways you can interpret it. That's kind of how my brain interpreted it. But I just, the idea of this super pathetic, super grotesque, cheap suit that's falling apart, suddenly being on an equal standing with Redman, that to me, I was very proud of that, and I was very happy with how that came out.
It also gives a lot of like insight into like maybe Redman isn't completely, I guess, evil. He isn't completely consumed by the hunt or whatever. You know, he just might just have somewhat standards. You know.
Well, it's. I would say, from my interpretation, it's more that, and again, this is a little bit of behind the scenes here. He is a hero, or he used to be a hero,
he would
and
think, yeah.
He thinks what he's doing is right.
Right.
And he thinks that, oh God, I want to tell you like my whole backstory I have worked out for him, but I can't get into it. I can't get into it.
Look, it's fine. I'll just tell you mine, and then you just wink if I'm like close.
Okay, sure, sounds good. Yeah, man.
Yeah, like I mean, I always saw it as he thinks he's a hero, right? Or he thinks this is like a job he needs to do. When, not really, because like. It's all kind of like, why do they stop monsters? Well, because they're threats to what specifically? Well, you know, to people, to buildings, right? But then there's this whole environment that has no buildings, no humans actually. So, who's in danger? You know. But like this weird idea of like, or like we mentioned before, kaijus are by default the bad guy, and Redman probably just sees them as like a binary. Like kaiju bad, so he just goes straight at it because he thinks he's doing something of a good when he's really like is he just kind of like seems to exist with everything that exists here, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a valid interpretation. But yeah, man, I'm if you want to Okay, because I'm trying to remember because I'm sitting here trying to remember like what was the timeline of all the chapters.
No, it's. I mean, you could ask me. I got all the books right here.
Well, because that's the thing is like I think a lot of people tend to assume that the creators of the works know everything about it and have everything internalized, and it's not really true because a lot of creatives and especially writers, we're so constantly jumping to the next thing and getting it, because I've got some other stuff I'm working on right now, and I'm already kind of consumed with that. It's not that we've completely forgotten or moved on. It's just the work, we did it and we put it out there. And actually and I guess in a way we have kind of moved on. We were like, okay, now we're on to this. And now that is second priority in my mind. And I can always go back to that other stuff if I need to, but I haven't like internalized it and cataloged it, you know?
Would you say it's kind of like getting into the zone, kind of like project?
Yeah.
Like I gotta get into the vibe of making this project, to really focus on it, you know.
Yeah, I gotta get into. I have to get inside of my own head, and be there. Like I said, I'm working on something else right now, and it's actually more of a challenge. It's actually a greater challenge in a lot of ways.
Oh, word.
But I will intimate more on that later. But you continue, sir.
Okay, cool, gotcha. Okay, so I like the next chapter, which is the one about Czars and Black King and Dorako, which are two kaijus, are kind of like they're kaijus who know they're gonna have to fight Redman eventually, right? And they're trying to scheme. They're trying to scheme a plan, and I like how this is probably the more funnier story, and it's also a little more, I want to say lighthearted, but it's a little bit more cartoony. I really like the page where it's Dorako and Black King, and they're explaining to Czars with visuals like how they gotta team up to fight Redman, right? Like that's what they gotta do. Only together can they defeat like Redman, and Czars is kind of like, what? Like he doesn't really like know what's really going on, right?
Well, Czars is just Yars. Czars is just kind of a big dumb animal. It's just a brontosaurus, and it doesn't really So the thing with kaiju is that I tend to take the Toho perspective, which extends to a lot of other kaiju media. Kaiju aren't really characters; they are actors, and it's sort of like whenever people get upset about Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, casting Ghidorah as a villain and Godzilla as a hero, I sort of roll my eyes at that because I'm like, well, first of all, Ghidorah's never had much of a character to begin with. It's always just been this amorphous force of destruction.
Right.
But I really like the idea of doing what-if stories and recasting them as opposing elemental forces. And if it works for the narrative and if it's interesting, then that's what matters. I'm not much of a I mean, I do get a stickler for certain things. Like I did not like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie because I think that trying to make the character sympathetic immediately makes him less interesting. I so much prefer a Joker who is like the whole thing behind the Mark Hamill Joker, the thing that made him the best Joker, second only to what's his name?
Lego Batman Joker.
Well, Lego Batman Joker is also amazing. Like version of that version of Joker.
That's my favorite Batman movie, by the way, unironically. Better than Dark Knight.
Same, absolutely same here. Like totally same here. Like Lego Batman movie is second only to Mask of the Phantasm for me as far as Batman movies go.
Nice.
But the thing that is so frustrating is, again, I take the approach that nothing is sacred. You do have to know your audience. You have to know what your audience is expecting to a certain extent. But again, try to give them something that they didn't know they wanted. And for me, now granted, the Joker movie is very popular, but it's popular because it sort of, I think, I'm being really, I will fully admit, I'm being really snobbish here.
Okay.
I think it kind of tricks its audience into thinking it's actually a good movie when what it's done is taken a bunch of shit from other better movies and just kind of slathered this veneer
I
of high concept filmmaking over a superhero movie about a clown.
I think there was this one letterbox review that makes the rounds a couple times about Joker that says, "If you've never been to an ocean, of course a pool looks deep." And
Oh, I love that.
and I mean I agree because I feel like a lot of themes in the Joker were done way better in other movies. All the movies that inspire the Joker are like 10 times better movies than the Joker.
Oh yeah, no, like I and a lot of them I hadn't seen, but I knew that as I was watching the Joker, I was already frustrated. Well, I was already frustrated with it because, like I said, they tried to make the Joker sympathetic, and the Joker is at his most interesting and engaging when all the violence he does and all his plans and schemes, they're just for his own amusement.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason he laughs is because he thinks this shit is funny. I mean, the Harley Quinn version of the Joker is also, I think, really interesting and really fun
Oh
because he's
yeah,
just this paragon of toxic masculinity, and I think
right, right.
that's really, really interesting. I
Yes,
don't really know how I feel about the season 2 twist on that, but I've got to think about it a little more.
I feel you. I feel you. All right, what? Okay, Redman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to go back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So anyway, the story with Zars
Oh,
is a
yes.
good story. It's fun. It's more. It brings in more. It's a different kind of kaiju than we've seen before in the last one, and okay, and then in the next story, I really this one kind of like when I first read this, I thought, whoa, I did not know this kaiju existed or the concept of this kaiju ever existed. But I really love how you kind of like the next story is called Big Liger, and for anyone who
Oh, yeah.
this story I feel like it's more if you know more about Ultraman, if you um okay, so Ultraman and Godzilla fans, there's like a lot of like crossover with those two fandoms, right? You can't really have one without the other, right? And when this story
Mm.
opens up, it opens with Jiras,
Yeah.
and if you don't know who Jiras is, look up this kaiju, and the rest of the chapter is gonna make more sense if you know what this kaiju looks like. You don't gotta know anything about it. You just gotta know what the kaiju looks like, because the kaiju is clearly a repurposed Godzilla suit, and they added a
Mm-hmm.
frill on it, right? And
Yeah.
this was a kaiju in Ultraman, right? So
Yeah.
and he just shows up just for like 3 panels until he gets like wiped out by Redman, right? But that's just the setup. That's just like the setup to tell you that like we have this like Godzilla, this repurposed Godzilla fusion monster, but now we're gonna bring in this repurposed Mothra fusion monster, and it really like kind of blew my mind. Like what the that's Mothra. That's Mothra.
It's so it's so funny to hear you say that
hmm
because that was not the intent.
Oh, really?
It is
Really? Oh, damn!
it,
I
and
thought I was like, oh, I see what you did there, Matt. But then you told me, no,
yeah,
that's not what I was doing.
that's I love no, I love it. I love that it's one of those things where I'll tell you a brief story.
hmm
Um, Back in college, I was a fine arts major, but the problem is that fine arts and illustration are not the same thing. It's sort of like wanting to be a carpenter and going to architecture school.
hmm
Like they're not the same. It's not the same field. You
hmm
can learn from it. You can pick up stuff. So and that will make you a better artist in the fine art field. But I clashed a lot with my professors and stuff. I actually got a lot of C's in art school.
hmm
Um, but what's so interesting is, for example, I did a video project for this one class where I just took my action figures and I would just do funny quotes from various movies, especially more not so much R-rated stuff, but stuff that's like edgier stuff.
Right.
And what I had not realized, so I thought I thought there was a lot of inherent comedy in using like children's toys to tell dirty jokes.
Right.
Which of course it's a Robot Chicken style gag.
I was about to say adult. I was just about to say Adult Swim too.
It's very Adult Swim, and I was like, that was like the height. I was in college at like the height of Adult Swim. And what I had not realized so I did the video and actually got a really big response. Everybody was very supportive and very like, oh, it was really fun. I really liked that. This one friend of mine came up to me afterwards and said, so I noticed that all of the jokes you used were gay jokes. And I'm like, oh shit, I did not realize that. Like I was like, what's the word I would use? I was like
unaware.
Well, I just thought they were funny, and I thought the timing was really good. Like for example, one of my favorite lines was, I took some lines from Full Metal Jacket where it's like, you know, you look like you suck a golf ball through a garden hose, or and then of course I ended it on a slightly more positive note, which was specifically the ending of Some Like It Hot. Do you remember that movie?
I'm aware of that movie.
Okay, yeah, I highly recommend that movie. It's really fun. For those who don't know, it's an old Marilyn Monroe movie, so it's a black and white joint, and God, she looks amazing. And you know, I'm just sitting here drooling over Marilyn, but she is in this all girls song and dance, not quite. What's the term? Like song and dance traveling. It's like a traveling
musical
group, musical act.
Theater
group, sort of like they go from city to city, like doing song and dance routines and stuff. And these two guys who witnessed this Chicago mob massacre that really did happen. They're two famous comedians from the 50s or 60s. They sneak up onto the group. They sneak onto into the group disguised as women, and shenanigans ensue. But at the very end, one of the guys forms a relationship with Marilyn, and that's the more traditional love story. But and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but it's a lot of a spoiler. But at the very end, they're escaping on the speedboat. Marilyn and the one guy are making out in the back seat. The other guy, who's been he's been pretending to be a girl this whole time. Don Knotts has fallen in love with him and helps them to escape. So he's trying to let Don Knotts down easy by saying like, "Oh, I'm a terrible tramp. I've slept in the same room with another man for the last 3 weeks," and he's just like, "I don't care," and he's like, "Oh, well, I smoke," and he's like, "I don't mind," or like, "I forgive you," and then he finally says, "I'm a man," and Don Knotts says, "Nobody's perfect." And then cut to credits. It's a perfect ending.
I'm aware of that scene. I've seen that clip be passed around.
Yeah, I highly recommend people go watch that whole movie is a riot. But anyway, I remembered hearing that from my friend. I'm coming back around to the point I'm making. I know this has been a while, but it's just one of those things where I saw that and I was like, they pointed out to me. I'm like, oh shit, what does that say about me? And in the intervening years, I think that A, I just like the taboo nature of the jokes, and B, I actually don't identify as 100% straight.
Word.
So as a result, I'm like, oh gosh, well, I wonder what that does say about me. So the fact that you pulled this completely fucking unrelated connection out of the story of this Mothra Godzilla parallel, it makes me wonder, did I subconsciously see the inherent contrast between Godzilla and Mothra in Jiras and Big Liger? Because Big Liger is a character that was originally supposed to be created for Redman and was never made. And so I'm like, oh shit. Because like the Big Liger is so vicious and so aggressive that I think that the idea of it being Mothra never entered my mind. But now that you think about it, I must have subconsciously, especially based the eyes and the face off of Heisei Mothra.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it like I think I looked at I'm looking through the volume right now to see, because I swear you had a little bit of the concept art for Big Liger in here.
That would have been the end of volume 1. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I thought it was like, oh, obviously, like he's setting us up for Big Liger, because like, remember how we repurposed the Godzilla suit? Well, here's a kaiju that's a repurposed Mothra, and I was like, oh yeah, obviously that's what he's like saying, like he's getting us ready to see the repurposed like Mothra suit, right? But like the fact that you said like that you weren't even channeling Mothra, I was like I'm amazed. I'm kind of like, whoa, really?
It really gives me something to think about. It's like making a bunch of gay jokes in a video for college and not even realizing it. It's like, what does that fucking say about me? Well, I really need to sit down and think about that now. So you've really given me something else to consider when looking back on this book.
I'm surprised. I'm just surprised here. Yeah, I kind of feel like, I kind of want to say, are you pulling my leg? Because it feels so...
No, I am 100% genuine about this. That was not the intention. I just wanted to make a joke about Jiger, because I know that a lot of Godzilla fans and Ultraman fans want Jiger. Sorry, they want Jiras to come back and be this ultimate foe, because it's the closest thing we can get to Godzilla versus Ultraman.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they sort of did Godzilla versus Ultraman back in 2015 in Ultraman X, they brought back the monster Gomez, who was the first Ultra Q monster, and it was also a repurposed Ultraman costume, a repurposed Godzilla costume. But they kind of recreated it as a more of its own creature. But that episode of Ultraman X is filled, front and back, filled with Godzilla references. And it really is like the closest thing to Ultraman fighting Godzilla. And Gomez wipes the floor with Ultraman. So I wanted to make more of a joke out of like, it's also kind of low-key a Godzilla 2014 joke. It's like, fuck you.
Okay, well, actually, okay, that makes sense too, now I think about it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because, I mean, I was excited when I saw, like, oh, yo, there's Jiraz, and I'm like, oh, wait, he's down, and then, but, I mean, I don't know, then the next part I was like, oh, okay, let's see where this is going, and then when I turned the page, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Mothra.
That's really funny. I really appreciate you bringing that up.
I mean, I'm kind of happy that I was, like, the first person to pick that up. I would figure, like, a Japanese fan would have noticed that first, because why would they not repurpose a Mothra suit, you know? Like, if they have it lying around, you know, might as well use it, right?
It's so interesting because the Mothra props really... I'm trying to remember if the Mothra props ever got repurposed for anything other than just more Mothra. Because Mothra appeared in so many movies, they never really had the opportunity to use it for anything else. Because, you know, Baragon got reused as a bunch of stuff. They reused Baragon like
crazy
4 or 5 times in Ultraman stuff. It's so interesting because, I mean, even the Ultraman monsters like Gomorrah and Red King got reused, but as different monsters.
Oh yeah.
So, because I mean, you know, they only had so much budget to work with.
Right.
But no, man, that's I really I just appreciate that tickles me, man. Well, let's keep this train rolling, because I'm super down to go with this for a little while longer. I don't have all afternoon. So.
All right, I got you. I just want to mention that I like the little teaser for Gamora at the end of that story, because like after Redman defeats all the Ligers using like those endless the red spears and defeats all the Ligers, and then he kind of like chills for a second. Behind him like appears like a silhouette of the Bemdora.
Yeah.
Right. And I like that. I remember seeing that at first, and I'm like, I wonder what that's about. And then finally when we got to volume 3, I'm like, oh wait, rereading it, I'm like, oh, that's Bemdora. Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, is that as we sort of intimate, Bemdora can hear. Bemdora is basically from our universe. He's from our reality, or
Right.
from the not. He's from outside the Purgatorium.
Right. Because I later when we get to volume 3, like literally cracks into it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's kaiju's in trouble and he's gotta save them.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
I love Bemdora. I love the concept of the character. I think it's a really cool idea. There's a superhero for kaijus. That's a really cool idea.
That was something that I'm kind of that to me was a bit of a response to the idea that Ultramen are always more powerful than the kaiju, and Ultramen are always the ultimate power. I wanted it because in my head, and eventually, hopefully, we'll see this. Bemdora is as strong as any Ultraman, and he has powers. Yeah. He has powers we haven't seen yet. Did you read his origin in volume 3?
I read it. I read it. It's very very traditional superhero, I would say. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, I there's a little more to it than that I would hopefully get into in the future. But yeah, man.
Okay, so I got a little. Okay, so I'm literally a nobody. I'm just a fan. I'm a fan of Redman. I'm a fan of Matt Frank. I love this guy's work. I think he does amazing. I have a little bit of a criticism for Bemdora's design. Just a little criticism.
I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
take it or leave it. I don't know. You probably heard this, but I think it would have been really cool. I think it would have been really awesome if Bemdora had some like visible markings on him, kind of like stripes that slightly resemble like markings that an Ultraman would have. You know, to kind of make him like stand out a little bit from all the other kaijus. You get me?
That is very interesting because that was one of the reasons why. So obviously, as Ultraman fans will know, Bemdora is based off the original concept of Bemlar, because originally Ultraman was not gonna. There was not when they were first developing this series that was going to become Ultraman. Bemlar was going to be the hero,
right?
And he was supposed to be this flying Garuda-like reptile monster, and Bemdora. How do I put this? And the reason why they didn't use Bemlar, one of the reasons they cited was because they didn't want it to be suddenly very difficult to tell the difference between the good monster and the bad monster.
Right.
So I decided to just kind of run with it and see where it goes. But like I said, that is a very interesting observation. Bemdora is definitely not done evolving. There's more to Bemdora that we haven't seen yet. So I'm going to log that away and see where that takes me creatively.
Look, it's just a freebie from Cheesymanfredo. All right, because
dope. I appreciate it.
I think it just be. I mean, yeah, and also what you said, it'll help him stand out a little bit more. You know, because when there's like the giant shots with all the other kaijus, he does kind of blend in, and I like the character. I would like to see the character appear more. And whatever comes after this, you don't gotta say anything.
It's all good.
It's a really cool idea. It's I feel like it's something we haven't seen, or I haven't seen specifically, right? Okay, so I guess let me talk about my 3 favorite points from volume 2. I like the Gesubira fusion.
Yeah,
that was a really cool. Not gonna lie, that was a really like cool idea.
Well, I wrote that whole idea back when Ultraman Geed was airing, and they were doing monster fusions, and I more made that as sort of a
your fanfic monster fusion.
Well, not just that, but I kind of in a lot of ways, yeah. But I also kind of wanted it to feel like whatever force is tormenting Redman by extension, that they're getting bored.
Right.
and they want to mix things up, so they kind of pull this desperation move of, well, here's a few, we fuse two monsters together. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
And it ultimately is just like, oh, it just ends the same way it always ends. Redman
It
wins.
it's very realistic to like when like with the actual Ultraman series, they gotta keep thinking of, okay, what's next season's gimmick? What does this next Ultraman do now? What's the new gimmick for the monsters?
Yes.
So it's a very show producer thing to do, which I like. It feeds into the whole meta of Redman, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that is definitely a big part of it, is this whole, like, the meta of Redman is this constant need for entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Often at the expense of those who are creating it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And speaking of entertainment, I think another scene I like. This is a scene right before one of my favorite fights of the whole of the 3 volumes, is when Redman does kind of crack through and enters like the black void where the TV's at, and
Yeah.
and he finds the cicada men like watching the screen, and then he's like ready to fight them, but they're not moving, and they turn out to just be empty husk, and I love that, because it's like we saw the cicada man in volume 1, and it's clearly like, oh yeah, these aliens are like they're watching Redman, right? But then in volume 2, it's revealed that they're just like husks. They're like old cicada shells, and it makes me think like, oh damn, maybe like they used to watch Redman. They used to, but like now they don't anymore. And who knows how long it's been since anyone was watching like Redman, who's really like enjoying this. It makes it make like how deep is this hole? Like.
I'm so glad to hear this, because it's just like, oh man, he's so fucking close. He's so close you're on the right track. You're on the right track.
Is the cicadas all the way down? Like how far do we go in? And then my favorite scene happens when Redman fights Dark Redman. And I mentioned this in our interview, how it suddenly turned into the Ultraman opening, and they're both just silhouettes just fighting each other. And I was like, this is so badass. It's such a cool concept. Like, I'm getting excited just looking back through it. And I feel like the best way to enjoy this is you gotta like, when you read this fight, you gotta go on YouTube, you gotta type Ultraman opening theme. You gotta play that in the background, but play it on slow speed. Like, play it really slow, right? And I think it works perfectly, because I imagine there's like a distorted like Ultraman theme happening in the background or something, or like maybe or maybe the lyrics are playing, but every time they get to Ultraman, every time they say like, oh, he's Ultraman, instead of saying Ultraman, like the Ultra part gets like kind of like staticked out, like it gets like blurred out, right? Or something like that. I just imagine that. Yeah, go on.
No. I can imagine that. That's actually a really fun interpretation. That scene had two. That scene basically had two purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Narratively, I wanted it to be not clear who was winning.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be not clear, like, is the which version of the character is winning. I wanted it to be intentionally confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a lot of ways, Redman is fighting himself. He's at war with himself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also, the more practical solution is, my God, was I behind schedule when I came around to this chapter.
Right.
And I actually did not ink that chapter, or all I did was lay down some light pencils,
mm-hmm.
and pass it off to my buddy Christian Gonzalez, who's sort of like an understudy almost. Like, mm-hmm. I've been kind of mentoring him. He's a good kid. He's a sweet guy. And I've been kind of helping him learn how to ink and how to meet deadlines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I'm paying him whenever he does.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
that's what I expect you would.
Yeah. I always try to pay people who help me professionally, and And he actually inked those pages and did a pretty good job.
Mhm.
And
Oh
then,
yeah.
of course, I had a couple of back and forths with the colorist Goncalo Lopez,
Mhm.
who um, he actually, I sent him like the Ultraman intros, various Ultraman intros, like from different eras, and I'm like, it's kind of like this, and kind of like this, kind of like this. And we found a really good compromise.
Right. Uh,
But yeah, man.
I mean, it turned out great. It's very meta. It's very great. It's a good fight. It's very
Thank you.
meta. It goes with the whole like parallels between Redman and Ultraman, and yeah, it's like a just a very 10 out of 10 moment, and ends volume 2 really well, right?
Yeah.
And it's just great. I think although my favorite is still volume 1, I think ultimately, but
Yeah.
it's a great fight. It's like my favorite fight from the whole series so far, right?
I'm so glad to hear that. That's really dope. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, so I think we already talked about Bemdora, but I wanna talk about in Volume 3. There's the opening story with this. It's kind of like kind of takes us outside of the Redman story,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe like I don't know. I theorize this might be a setup for something later on in the series. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A young Japanese boy who like wakes up kind of like in the middle of the night, kind of like creepy pasta level stuff. Encounters like a little baby Ella King in his house who like maybe escaped out of the TV, right?
Yeah.
And then like a giant like red man hand comes out to get it, which is really I mean really interesting way to open volume 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, I knew for a fact that people who read it were going to be like, "Oh, this is different. Oh, this is not okay. Something is very, very wrong." And a little extra bit of trivia.
Hmm.
This kid's apartment is, and internally we called him Jiro,
Right.
um, which I actually named him, and I hope I get to tell him this sometime in the future. I named him after my friend of mine, who is
Hmm.
actually a suit actor for Ultraman stunt shows
Nice.
and live appearances and stuff. He does live Ultraman appearances. And
Hmm.
his name is Jiro. And so I named him, and it was just Jiro is kind of a very common name in Japan. It's kind of
Right.
like John,
Right.
basically. But off the top of my head, he was the only Jiro I knew. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, I actually really like that name. Let's go ahead and go with that as
Hmm.
his name. Um, but what was the other thing? But yeah, I mean, like I said, that chapter was really heavily inspired by Junji Ito, and
Hmm.
on top of that, the apartment itself. Go back and watch Godzilla's Revenge. The apartment will start to look very familiar.
Oh god, this is what I love. This is what I love right here. When the little tidbits, the little like references to the encompassing tokusatsu like landscape kind of thing. These are great.
Well,
Um,
I knew he was a kid in the 70s,
mhm.
and him to I wanted him to I wanted him to have an apartment that looked like a Japanese apartment in the 70s, but
Right,
unfortunately, finding references of that are really difficult.
right.
So the closest I could find was was Godzilla's Revenge, which is basically a very cheap apartment in late 60s, early 70s Japan,
Hmm.
and um, working class family in Kawasaki.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was the best I could find. And even then, it was probably that apartment was probably more lavish than most
Hmm.
lower income apartments were in Japan in 1969.
Hmm.
But yeah,
It was great. Yeah, yeah. And then after that, you introduce Bemdora, which I like by the way. I like a kaiju that could stand toe to toe with an Ultraman or Redman, basically, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
great. And
yeah.
and then after that, these you bring two specific kaijus that I wasn't really aware of, but when I looked into it, they're two kaijus from Ultraman movies, which is Dark Gone and Iron.
Iron.
Iron, yeah. And I wanna ask you about that. What was why you do that?
Well,
to make it a simple question, what was why? What was that? What was that about?
Well, I wanted two monsters of not well they're not so much monsters as they are Uchujin, they're Seijin, they're aliens.
Right.
And they are kind of I wanted characters that were extra dimensional. They're not from any of the main Ultraman universes.
Right.
And they're also I wanted these wrenches to be thrown, these monkey wrenches to be thrown into the Purgatorium, because now we have all these things coming in from outside, because the fabric of the Purgatorium was broken when Redman killed Redman Dark.
Right.
And Iron and Dark Gone or Dark Gone, we can call him Dark Gone. That's fine. Yeah. The pronunciation's all messed up. Those two are just very powerful, and they're very dangerous, and they have a lot of really scary powers and stuff. And they're from the newer generation. So again, they're just kind of this curveball being thrown.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted there to be example of something where we could show that Redman is not a complete monster, and he can work with, not even with necessarily, but he knows a larger threat when he sees one, and sort of has this shaky, tenuous alliance with Bendora.
Right.
But I didn't want him to necessarily suddenly respect Bendora, because at the end of that chapter, Redman's body basically gives out, and he turns back into Redman Blue. And where his energy is completely drained. And so I just thought it would be a nice little Dragon Ball-esque, because I had a lot of Dragon Ball inspiration for this volume.
Right.
And I wanted to be this kind of Dragon Ball-esque, it's the Saiyans are here.
Right. Isn't there like a variant cover where it's Bendora and Redman, and they're doing the Goku versus Vegeta pose from like their first fight?
That is absolutely what it is. And if you'll notice, Redman is in the Vegeta pose. Oh wait, no. Redman's in Goku's pose. Never mind. Yeah, I think that would have been. I had to make those covers on such a tight timeline that I just did not have time to think about them that hard. But no, and I thought that was fun. I did want to imply this, this is Redman's rival, right. This is the character that can meet him toe to toe. So yeah, that whole fight was really fun, and of course the other monster, Darkron, is another Mirror Man monster.
Oh yeah, the one monster they revive back is also a Mirror Man monster too, right?
Yeah, because Darkgone and Iron are, I think Darkgone is a Jumborg Ace monster, and Iron is a Mirror Man monster. But those versions of the characters are also versions from Ultraman Zero, the movie.
Right.
So I thought, okay, well, why don't I riff on this idea and have them take another old Mirror Man monster and mutate it into something more powerful, which was Gigakron. And that was something I just made up. I just said, screw it, we'll just make another mutant. And their plan is to mutate all of these monsters into their personal army, take them back to the
Ultraman universe.
Yeah, take them back to whatever universe they came from and conquer it.
Right.
And it's implied that they're operating on orders from someone else.
Well, if you actually seen the movie, they work under Ultra Belial, right?
Yeah, they are, but Belial was destroyed.
Right.
So who are they working for now?
Right. Exactly. This is like another moment where You could, as a non-Ultraman fan, as a non-Toku fan, like enjoy this comic. But if you are a Toku fan, like a lot of um, things introduced kind of set you up for things that are going to happen later. You know, like oh these two big bad kaiju's are related to Mirror Man, and a Mirror Man, they revive a Mirror Man kaiju later, right? Because they themselves are kind of like Mirror Man revived kaiju's, right? And there's a lot of like a lot of like
a lot
I
of
guess
Easter egg.
yeah, a lot of Easter egg, a lot of fan subtext, right? And
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that you did that. Good job. 10 out of 10.
Thank you. 10 out of 10.
Right, and then so then the last story he fights against. That starts out with Redman, and his last, I guess, for this volume in confrontation with Bemdora, and then he gets like just thrown out of that fight. Like that fight kind of just ends, and he ends up back in that creepy forest from earlier, and he finds they find a van, and I didn't know what that van was until I read like kind of like the explanation in the back that's like the van they use to record episodes, right? And
It's I actually went through several versions of the van, and I had to redraw it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found a couple, well, Andrew over at Phase 6 and a couple of the staff there found a few references for different vans based on the descriptions of the van from the people who worked on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the closest approximation to the van that I could find, since I couldn't find any photos of the actual van they used.
Yeah, that's great. And then this big creature called Mito, Purgatory Controller, appears, and Redman has like the final boss, right, of the Purgatorium. Right, and
yeah.
and I want to ask about is Mito's name like an acronym, or was that mean?
It's I'm trying to remember, because it actually is an acronym, and I cannot remember off the top of my head.
Damn.
It's like multiversal. It's like multiversal something domination organizer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's this thing that essentially runs the Purgatorium and is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's like isn't this thing like the narrator also?
It is the narrator. That is correct. Mito is the narrator, and the reason why I called it that was because there in the Redman text, in the Redman old magazine articles and stuff, the text states that there is an alien species that is the rival of Redman called the Mid, but in Japanese you would pronounce it as Midon.
Oh, okay.
So I just decided to make that the name and just called it Mido, or Mido, or however you want to pronounce it.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. And of course, because it's the kaiju aren't really even real. Like what they're just kind of echoes of what they once were.
Right.
And that lets Mito use them however it wants.
Right.
And that's what creates this this big chimera that Redman has to fight.
Right.
And and that leads us to the next part.
He destroys Mito, which also destroys the Purgatorium. And then we go back to, I assume this is like an older Jiro, right? And now Redman is like officially outside in the real world, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's where we leave off.
Right, now it seems to imply he's more of a traditional Ultraman-like character, right?
Well, that was the thing. Like, we were asking Subaraya about that, and they said, like, well, don't, you can kind of play with it a little bit, but his official stats are he is like 40 meters tall. He is supposed to be the size of an Ultraman. So we're gonna. Okay, so I won't get too far into it, but there is more Redman story, and
Right, of course.
we took a break. We're
Mm-hmm.
taking a break for a little while
Right.
because we are trying to do something else right now.
Nice.
And we're working with Subaraya on another project. I can't say what it is
Mm-hmm.
because because of all the COVID stuff, everything is backed up and
Right.
everything is we got to wait on everything,
Of
because
course.
Subaraya is trying to ramp back up. They're trying to get their live shows back in order because unlike in America, Japan locked down and they are now recovering. Their economic recovery is happening faster than ours. So a lot.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. It's maddening because I look at all the other countries who are like slowly getting back to normal and slowly getting back to work, and especially here in Texas, it was like, no, our lockdown was only like what 3 weeks to a
Yeah,
month,
that's
and now
enough.
we just
Right. And
ran out of the street and we stubbed our toe, and now we're like ah
oh God.
ah.
Right.
So, but anyway, so Super I is kind of getting back to normal over there, and so as a result, they're taking a little longer to approve stuff. So we're being patient. We're just waiting. We're just waiting for stuff to on their own time. It's on their time.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, well, I'm really excited. I really hope we can announce it soon.
I'm excited too, and this gives me time to work on my Redman fan comic, cause
Yeah,
I have my own meta story ideas and whatnot for how this could keep on going.
oh
Um,
sure.
yeah. Cause it's all cool. I haven't. Redman kind of reminds me of like when they do. It kind of reminds me of superhero comics. You ever heard of a comic called Flex Mentalo?
Flex Mentalo, no sir.
It's one of those superhero comics that's like about superhero comics and what they mean to people and like their existence and whatnot. And it gets like very meta, and it's written by Grant Morrison, who's all about like
Cool.
he believes magic is real and and
Yeah.
multiverses with comics and whatnot.
Sure.
He's a swell guy. Anyway, like this kind of like Redman kind of reminds me of something like that because it's like very meta about Toku, Ultraman, all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see more of that. I'm not saying you to make more of that, but I hope like this inspires people, or maybe that kind of meta already exists, and maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
just unaware of it, right? But it's a very cool take. It's a very unique take. I really like Redman. I
Mm-hmm.
also think your colorist did a really good job too.
Well, I
Uh,
appreciate that. Giancarlo is good people. Um, he managed to get all the stuff colored while having kids and everything. He works really hard. I really want to keep working with him on stuff. I mean, if we come back around to Redman, I hope that he can join us again for the next volume. So,
God, what a king!
yeah, totally, absolutely, super sweet guy, very supportive.
He knocked it out of the park. Um, and I think that's it. I think you already told us about Redman. We talked. This is pretty in depth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when Redman Volume 4 comes out in 2025, we'll
Hopefully, it
hope
won't be that long.
we'll hopefully talk about it. Hopefully, hopefully we get the the 3D anime series of Redman on Netflix eventually by then, or
Oh, I
whatever.
want it. I want
Yeah.
it.
Hopefully Matt gets on bigger projects and whatnot. And I think that's it. Anything you want to plug before we go, Matt?
Depending on when this episode goes up, we're doing Kaiju Con Line the weekend of July 11th and 12th. It's essentially an online version of G Fest. Everyone, we got a lot of people lined up for it. We're going to have a lot of really cool panels. I'm going to be doing live streaming, and I'm also going to be doing a panel with James Flower from Arrow Video. We're going to be promoting the Gamera Complete Collection from Arrow that I did all the artwork for. I did a bunch of
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm excited for that.
I'm so excited for that as well. And yeah, I just appreciate everyone's love and support. You can follow me. You can go find my stuff at mattfrankart.net, which has links to all my social media and everything. I got my own podcast, The Giganticast. I'm on RageSelect.com, where I play video games with my buddy Jeff. We actually just did Robot Alchemic Drive, which is a personal favorite PS2 game of mine. It's a
nice.
Giant robot fighting, sort of a giant robot simulator, basically. Like it's as if somebody took Johnny Sacco and his flying robot and merged it with Gigantor, and then merged it with Evangelion. Like, it has a lot of those vibes to it. So, and it has a terrible dialogue, just blisteringly awful, and I love it. So go check that out. I got nothing else, man, but this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you doing this episode. I'll be sure to link people, say like, hey, you want a retrospective of Redman? Go check this out.
Yeah, I want more people to read Redman. I want more people to get into Matt Frank stuff. I mean, I don't think he needs any help on that. He's already a pretty popular guy.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, and I think we're done.